Kia ora tātou everyone, Claire Stewart from Scion, and really here today to kind of share with you where we're at with the app. As Stu mentioned, it's been in development for a little while now, and it's at a stage where we're now ready for all of you to start downloading and using it. So firstly, what is Find-A-Pest? And I think the place to start is also understanding how we determine what a pest is within this space. And I think really everyone's presentations today just builds us to this point, which is that it's any organism, plant, animal or fungus that can affect plant, animal or human health. And we're really lucky in New Zealand that we're free of many harmful pests, and what's critical to that is early detection. And we've heard that many times already today, so I won't go into it in too much detail, but really what this is about, because hearing everyone's talks today, it's evident that for those on the ground there's so much to think about. There are so many different things from a paperwork, a science to be aware of. And so what we tried to do through developing the Find-A-Pest app was make it really easy for you on the ground when you see something unusual to report it through. We wanted to keep it simple. We wanted it to be something that you could easily use when you're in the field. So that's kind of Find-A-Pest and where it came from. We've heard today about the different types of surveillance, and this very much sits within the general surveillance area. It's a passive surveillance network, and it's about all of us. Obviously, Biosecurity New Zealand would like to be everywhere, but that's just not possible, so we need eyes and ears on the ground. And so very much that's what Find-A-Pest is about, citizen science, hearing from all of you. It's also your link in to your sector's biosecurity team. So what we'll show you today is the sector that's specific to kiwi fruit, and there's a little news area in there, and you can receive notifications and information to the app in your pocket. So getting information out to you as quickly as possible. And also what sits behind this in terms of identifications that you might make are real people. So at the moment, actual people are looking at anything you submit and are making a response. And that's due to the fact that we're integrated with New Zealand's largest biological science resource network, and that's iNaturalist New Zealand. I'll talk to you about some of our future hopes in terms of where the technology might go, but at the moment that's real people. And in the last year, as we've had beta trials going with the app, we have had really fast response from people in terms of making the observations, reviewing, and then coming back with a response. So with, I think it was 65% of responses were received within under an hour of the observation being made, and 95% inside a day. So if you make an observation, even though it's real people behind it, you will hear back really quickly. We've already seen this graph today, so I won't go into detail. It's obviously quite a popular one. Good to see we're on the same page, but I think the main point to make here in regard to Find-A-Pest is that we have more tools in our toolbox when we look for things at an earlier stage and a much lower cost. And so Find-A-Pest is one of those very early tools to help us understand what's normal and what's not normal. And then we have very highly esteemed people already talking about the importance of the tool. So definitely a key reason to download it if you haven't already after this. So how can you help? So it's about growing your understanding of what's normal for you within your area, immediately submitting an observation of anything you don't recognise. Obviously this sits alongside the suite of other options you have, which is calling the 0800 number, which is doing the unusual symptoms report. Find-A-Pest is just another tool in your toolkit. And I joke here about working on your photography skills, but it is actually really important that we have a really clear picture so that we can make that identification as easy as possible. So 3 ways to be a biosecurity champion within the tool. So you'll see in the top right there's a search button. That's if you know what you're seeing. So if you know you're seeing brown mum-rated stink bug, hopefully not, you could search for it specifically. You could use the fact sheet. So that's probably the main way that people initially will make identifications. So what we've got through our database is the sector-specific pests. So we've got pests for kiwi fruit that will come up, and you'll be able to click into that fact sheet and see more information around that, the status on it, and also how to report it. So, and then the third way is to use the camera button. So that's to take a photo of what you're seeing and submit it through for observation. And so that's where it gets sent through to the iNaturalist database and the network of people that sits behind that, also connected into your networks through KVH to make the observation and to review if there's something that we should be concerned about. So what happens to your observation? And we'll demo that coming up soon, but basically if it's an existing pest or weed that's known, it will be publicly visible on the iNaturalist database. You can, when you set up your profile, and we'll show you that soon, obscure your location, so it's kind of within a general area of where you might be, but not necessarily right down to your specific property. And then if it's something that is unusual, not known, and it gets sent through to Biosecurity New Zealand, it will not be publicly visible, but your information will be appended to that so that obviously people can get in touch with you for more information as needed. So additional features, just to be aware of, I mentioned before, news that is sector specific. So there's a little tab at the bottom, news, and that will notify you of anything that's relevant. And then when you actually make your observations, in the bottom right, there's an activity tab. And so that holds a list of everything you've done, an activity log, and that's where you will be communicated with to let you know, actually, this is a known thing and not a problem. And then if it is something that is of a concern, you would actually likely receive a call. And in our trials that we've done, that happens very quickly in most cases, in under 10 minutes. So, but you can, I think what's really great about the activity log is you can actually keep a log of what's normal for your environment. And so if you have new team members, new staff coming on, you can show them, through the app, you might see this, and this is something that's quite normal at the moment, something we're monitoring. So it's a great thing for all of the team to have in their pockets and to just keep a status on what's normal and what's not. So in terms of where we'd love to see this go next, and already today my mind is, cogs are going in terms of some of the other things that could be relevant for your sector, but essentially we want that data that is put into the app to then be able to inform operational decisions within sector. So that stronger integration with our stakeholders, such as KVH, Zespri, observations made via the camera. At the moment, obviously, I said that that's people that are doing that. We would like to use AI so that we can automatically return a result based on things that are very much known. Fully geofenced. So what I mean by that is if we know that, let's say the worst happens and brown mum-ray stink bug does come and we know it's in a specific area, we can immediately push out, much like you get notifications in other ways for COVID and so on, is actually say, look, it's in the area, it's in this space, be aware, that kind of thing. So high priority pests and weeds specific to a location. And then full integration of deep learning, so species recognition tools. So that's where we'd love to take it at the moment. It is ready to download in iOS and Android. It's a great resource to use to help in that early detection and what's normal and what's not for you. So making your first observation. Yes. I've got my lovely assistant here who's going to, we'll walk you through how this works. Just plug it in. Are you going to do it from sign up or just from?
No, just from.
Okay, so I'll just make a quick note before Erin shows you through making an observation. Is you do need to create an account. So when you download the app, it will say login, and that will pass you over to the iNaturalist registration. So that handover is slightly strange. You are still on the right pathway. If you have an iNaturalist account, you could literally log in and use those details straight away. When you set up the account, you'll give obviously the standard information, name, number and so on. That's really important for when you make your submissions, that we've got that information. You can then put your region and then your sector of interest. So as you can see, kiwi fruit. And then we also suggest just weeds because that's a good general one. From a language perspective, we've got English and also Te Reo. Some aspects of the tool have been translated. And this is where, from an obscure location perspective, at a general settings level, you can say, I want my location obscured. So I don't want it to be down to my specific property when I'm making observations, and that's been publicly published on iNaturalist. And then you can also say, share that data with your local community, regional council, and so on to inform pest control. So that's the kind of setup of the profile. Once that's done, you do have the ability to manage your settings, add other sectors and so on of interest, change language.
Perfect. All right, so we thought it would be good just to, whoops, that's me, put it on the screen to show you what the app looks like on the phone, and then just run through a few of the features and how to report a pest. It's super simple, so we really just want to show you how simple the app is to use. And I guess before we touch on that, I just wanted to touch on these fact sheets. So you will notice that some of these guys you have here are ones that we have present in New Zealand. So if we open the Fuller's Rose Weevil, you'll see its status there, and it says widespread pest, and that's obviously something we have. And if you go down through the fact sheet, it gives you a little bit more information about the species, about its origin, and you'll see there it says present in New Zealand. And then also a little bit about the damage. So sometimes if you're seeing some damage and you see a weevil next to it, you can have a look at that damage tab and see if it's similar to what you're seeing and whether that might be causing the damage. The other fact sheets we have on here are also pests that we don't have in New Zealand. So if you look at the status is different and it comes up as threat. And again, if you go down and you look at origin, it'll say it's not known in New Zealand. So yeah, it's just really to be aware that we understand that you might want to know what's on orchard, and it doesn't necessarily need to be new. You might just want to know what's happening so that we can, report what we have and also be able to early detect what we don't have.
One thing that I'll just mention as well is you'll see the national and the regional tabs on either side of that. And within that are pests of significance nationally, but not necessarily specific to your sector, or regionally, but not specific to your sector. So if you're seeing catfish and you're thinking, why the hell am I seeing catfish? It's probably just because you're going to get so into reporting things that you're going to be around everywhere trying to take photos and so on. So that's why we've included both of those.
Perfect. So 2 ways to report that Claire mentioned. The first one is through the fact sheet. So you'll click on the fact sheet and you'll go down to report this pest. So if you click on that and then you click the little arrow in the corner, you may have already taken a picture. So this can be used, you can take a picture if you're out on orchard, or even if you're somewhere that doesn't necessarily have service. Take a picture on your camera roll, and when you get back to it, you can flick it through the Find-A-Pest app. Or you can take a photo right now, which I will do of you glorious people, like that. And then you'll use that photo. And just really reiterating the point that Claire said, it's really valuable to get a clear picture. So if the first one doesn't work, retake it, go again, and use it. So there you go. So because you've entered it through the fact sheet, it'll come up with the title of what you think you found already. And then you can enter the description. So I'll just enter test description so it doesn't go through to MPI as a biosecurity threat.
Although it does look like a strange and weird species
exactly.
group.
And then it's that simple. You submit the finding, or you don't, because I don't have my...
If you just, yeah, that might, so just say obscure, that should be...
Wow, it worked before.
Oh, we don't have it.
Always the way. Well, it is as simple.
If we have submitted that, I then would have received in my...
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. In my observation little database that I have access to as an observer, I would have received that straight away, and I could have said, received and don't forward, as in this isn't something of concern, publish on the iNaturalist database, or forward on to Biosecurity New Zealand MPI as something of risk. So the interfaces are literally, happening that quickly, and it's super easy and straightforward. So that's how we would...
Yeah, exactly. And I guess just she mentioned the other simple version is just, if you don't think it's one of these pests, but you think it's something unusual and you want to know what it is, you just click the camera button down at the bottom, same process, take your photo, use it, and then you can just, in the name, just type what, stink bug, bug on leaf, to give a good example. And then when you enter the description, you can put in what you like there, but often it's good to mention size, because it's quite hard to get size from a photo, and size is often quite a defining feature of what an insect may be. So enter size, potentially where you found it, if you found it on a kiwi fruit leaf, if you found it damaging, boring into fruit, that's also really useful information. So all the information you can enter in there really helps the people on the other end to understand what the pest is potentially and where it should go.
Perfect. And out on the table as you walk out today, there's some brochures and some little cards, and they have a QR code on it for easy download of the app, and also if you just want to take it back to share with teams so that they know a little bit more about how it works as well. It kind of spells out what we've talked about today.
Perfect.
That's Find-A-Pest. Thank you.
That is.
Sorry, was there any questions?
Any questions about the app or what you've seen there?
Just what benefit?
Just hang on a sec, we'll wait till you get the mic.
So I see one of the ways of reporting a pest is through the fact cards where you already know what the pest is. What value is there to reporting widespread pests like Fuller's rose weevil where they're fairly common?
Yeah, definitely. I think there is value in people understanding what's on orchard. It could be something common or it could not be. It also is, we want people to use it for interest as well. So, if you were only ever reporting, if we only ever had fact sheets on there that were new to New Zealand, the chances of, getting interest in reporting through the app would be. So we really want people to understand. And some of those pests on there, Fuller rose weevil is one that's well spread. Some of them that are established in New Zealand, but we're not quite sure what they're doing on orchards. So, example, guava moth is on there. So we know that that's in New Zealand, but it would be really interesting to get reports about if it's on orchards, so then we can start seeing if there are changes in patterns. And we can use that regionally. So, we may be getting a boom in guava moth up north, and then that means we can start looking at focusing our effort and managing it up there and what's happening. So yes, you are right, there are some really common pests, but we just want people to use it for that early detection, but also to use all the knowledge we have out there to understand what's happening on your orchard.
I think as well, if you reverse that data up from just you to then everyone like you who's also reporting, then we can blow that out and see some really interesting patterns, as Erin said, which might inform certain, what's happening in what areas at what times, and inform how we might do things moving forward. So just because it might not be that unusual for you doesn't mean it wouldn't inform some insight further along.
Oh, one more.
Hi, I was just wondering how you would deal with misinformation, mis-IDs or cryptic species, because I know scale can be really hard to identify just from sight.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's where the connection into the database of experts and the real people aspect behind it. So if there's something that can't be identified straight away or more information is needed, then someone would ultimately be in touch with you.
Yeah, definitely. You could say the same with lots of pathogens and diseases. They're obviously quite hard to ID, so it's that real person interface that is part of the app as well, so that we can then reach out if we need more information and gather it that way.
Got one more back here again.
Yeah, me again. Just because what you touched on in my question earlier with the pest concentrations in areas, is there any sort of long-term plan to integrate this and maybe the pest management aspect of kiwi fruit growing with monitoring results and that sort of thing all tabulated and sort of in an area where growers might be able to access it? So if you are getting huge numbers of leaf rollers in your area, you could kind of get notifications or flags or something along those lines?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much exactly what we want to get out of this, is that we can start tabulating and understanding what's happening where. And that news tab that you saw, that's really about putting that kind of information out there. So, we may be seeing an increase in leaf roller in Te Puke, so, we could push news out through that to let people know what we're seeing. We're also thinking, is there use in putting out monthly summaries so people can see what's being found on FindAPest, how many observations are going through, so that we can really keep people involved and they know where their reports are going and how useful they are to the industry.